Well, a huge welcome to the third episode of Best of Rivals. Today, we'll be speaking about England's chances in the World Cup, and this is the episode that Ryan and I have been very much looking forward to. So, I'm here, your host, Matt Pendry, in Budapest right now. So, I've actually just been watching the Germany carousel game. Quite a good game. It was 1-1 at one stage. It was looking a bit dicey for the Germans, but true to form, they came through. Much to my happiness, Musiala and Kimmich had a decent game. So in the fantasy football team, they've done well for me. But otherwise, yeah, true Germans playing well as expected. But Ryan, today, really, this is your episode. This is your opportunity to convince not only me, but the audience as to why you think England may well win the World Cup. And to many of our viewers, I've heard the word outlandish prediction have been levelled against you. So can you back the courage of your convictions and justify why you think England will do well?
Well, I hope I can, Matthew. So I'm going to start by just sort of breaking down some of the arguments online as to why people, or the general consensus is that England are probably not going to go all the way. And I think a big theme has been the squad selection. Now, I've made a point in episode one that for a lot of reasons, I think Tuchel's the best England manager we've had in the last 20 years, certainly in terms of in-game management. And I think that's the thing that made a lot of us frustrated with Gareth Southgate. Yes, he did a great job, of course, of bringing the lads all together, but very frustratingly, he wasn't bringing on the subs at the right time. He did seem to bring the same players sort of crammed into a team. And the frustration, of course, of the golden generation was similar in the sense that we never really got our structure or our starting 11 right. And I do think, barring a few players, we know who our starting 11 are, and we know who their direct replacement is. And because of that, we have a very firm tactical approach, which in bygone tournaments was just not there. So that makes me, firstly, very looking forward to what's going to happen with the England team during the tournament. I think also you've got to bear in mind Tuchel's credentials as a manager. He's won trophies, he's won leagues, he's won the Champions League, and the managers previously didn't really have that pedigree, barring maybe Capello, but Capello didn't have the English football pedigree that Tuchel has. So that's probably argument number one, and I'd like to hear your thoughts to that.
Yeah, that okay, so start with in-game management, for example.
Mm.
So I completely concur. And I said in episode one, that's where we missed out against Italy, against Croatia, against Spain, against France. It was Woutgate's lack of ability to pull the trigger. So you make a fair point there. My concern with Tuchel would be as follows. So if you take out what, in my opinion, was a lucky Champions League victory against Man City, Pep was tinkering around, and I think Pep actually tied himself in knots with the old 4-6-0 formation there. If you take out that, okay, PSG, half of the course is winning Liga 1. Bundesliga inherited a good team there. So really, what has Tuchel done, apart from that lucky Champions League victory, in my opinion, to convince you that he has the chops as a manager?
If England win this tournament by luck, I'll take it. And that's the thing; it's just getting over the line, and that's what we've missed. It doesn't matter how you get there. If you come up against nations along all the way to the final that you should be beating, that's the way the tournament goes. You can only beat who's put in front of you, and that's what Tuchel did with Chelsea. And that Chelsea team weren't a great side, but so to get them even to the final to then win the Champions League was quite an achievement. Um, but it's not just his credentials as well. I just feel like the way he holds himself in the conferences, he's not really scared of the media, the British media. I think a lot of previous foreign managers for England have struggled with the press. He seems to manage it very well. He's obviously got the experience of Premier League football, knew what he was probably getting himself into, and really he's quite casual in those presses, which I think is probably a good thing. And the way the players are talking as well is also very positive. Jude made the comment that last tournament there were reasons internally. He didn't really tell us as to what it was exactly, but even he says that we've got a different approach this time, and I generally think there's a good vibe around the camp.
Excuse my bluntness here, but should we not, by your first argument, just get Roberto Di Matteo as England manager because he did that with a worse Chelsea team? He beat Bayern in the Allianz. He beat Barcelona, peak Barcelona. So really, what has Tuchel done apart from luck his way? No offense, but luck his way to a Champions League victory and PSG Liga 1 title that can convince you as a fan that he's the man.
Well, yeah, he's won three trophies, three massive trophies. I know you made the point that PSG should be winning the title, and the same with Munich, but he's still gone out and done it. And that's the thing. I think that's the missing key for England. We've been so close yet so far, certainly over the last four tournaments, that we just need that grit, maybe that German approach to just get to the finish line. And that's where I see Tuchel's taking us. Um, but of course, a lot of it's already been built, and I think Tuchel himself made the point that he's coming into a team that's almost there. It just needs some final tweaking. So it's not the case that he's having to sort of turn turn a team that's been barely reaching the quarterfinals for the last few tournaments into something that's going to win. It's a team that's literally had it half a hand on the trophy, and it's just a different approach that he's going to bring to the squad. And in his selections, which we'll move on to now, really embodies the type of football that he wants to bring. So if we start with the midfield, to my reckoning, in that centre of Anderson Rice with Bellingham ahead, arguably is as strong as any of the other midfield three of the other nations. I think really barring maybe Portugal you could look at. But even so, I could make the argument that we're a bit more dynamic than Portugal. I know they've got Vitinha, Jao Neves, they've got Bruno. You could put Bernardo in there as well. But I almost feel like Portugal could suffer from the same issue that we had in our golden generation of trying to cram names into the squad. The likes of Ronaldo, Bernardo's probably going to have to play on the wing. He's not a right winger anymore. He's excelled in that sort of centre. But are you going to take out Jao Neves? Are you going to take out Bruno? Probably not. Um, so you can make arguments against some of the big nations as well. And those three individuals have all had great seasons,
Mm.
certainly Rice and Anderson. I think Bellingham's not had a rigorous season, which will probably actually benefit him. And he is a player for the big tournaments. We've seen that where he can score a bicycle kick to get us against Slovakia into extra time. And it's those moments that really make the difference. So them as a three, I think, is as solid as we could probably get, and arguably better organized than the likes of a Gerard Lampard of previous tournaments, purely because they're players playing in their main position.
Yeah, I mean, you make a fair point there, and I'd be remiss to disagree too much, but for the sake of argument, I will. So Portugal have got the best midfield in the tournament for me for the reasons you've outlined. I would say Argentina would be second because they have got the pedigree of we have won the World Cup. If you look at De Paul, McAllister, Enzo, okay, on paper, they possibly haven't got the gravitas that the Portuguese midfield have, but they have been there, got the T-shirt and so forth. And I will pay homage to any trio that have won the World Cup. So I'd put Argentina aside. Moreover, Spain, you look at that team. So you have Rodri, a Ballon d'Or winner. You have Fabian Ruiz, a two-time Champions League winner. Then you have Pedri, who is the new Xavi Iniesta of Spain. And they tore us to shreds, right, in the Euro 2024 final. But notwithstanding my aforementioned comments, I'd say we're probably the fourth best midfield. But then much to my chagrin, Tuchel seems reluctant to play Bellingham, or there's a bit of indecision about playing Bellingham or playing Rodgers. I think Bellingham, for me, is the second name on the team sheet after Harry Kane. And in England, I just think we need to back our quality players because Bellingham has that bit about him. He's the sort of guy who would score the overhead kick in a knockout game in the last minute and say, it's going to be me, why always me almost. So
Mm.
I believe in Bellingham. I think Anderson still needs to do stuff on the international stage, although young. But yeah, I worry, Ryan, about the depth that we have in midfield. And in the wider positions because I worry that Tuchel has almost just selected quite a binary team that there's only the starting lineup and two or three options. There's not a depth off the bench, is my big reservation about this team. So, can you do anything to at least dispel my worries about this team?
Yeah, I mean, the wingers really, I think, would are going to make or break England's success. And I'll start on the right because it's very Arsenal focused. But I think um, this is the tournament that Saka really needs to step up. If England are to win the tournament, we need Harry Kane on top form, bringing in the form that we've seen that he's had this season with Bayern. And we need Saka to somehow make a step up because he's done well at the tournaments. But I think this particular one, we need him to be sort of, start getting on the stage of the lights of a Vinny or a Dembele, not quite beating them necessarily, but being that figure in this team. Because in previous tournaments, like you say, if Saka wasn't playing too well, we would have brought on a Palmer maybe. But the way Tuchel's gone, and you can sort of see his thinking is he's almost gone like for like. So on the left, it's very comparable. You've got Gordon and Rashford. You can almost interchange them. If one's not doing so well or one needs a rest, you're pretty much putting like for like in place. I think on the right, Madueke is a step down from Saka, and that's why I think Saka is more important or the most important winger for England this tournament. But what Madueke does bring, and again, I'm not his biggest fan, but seeing him for Arsenal when he does come on, and particularly in this tournament, we've said it again, we've said it many times now. If I'm a fullback and it's 80 minutes into the game, it's 1-1, and you look and you bring on a player of the profile of Madueke, arguably you'd probably be more happy with the likes of a Palmer or Foden who's going to sort of cut in. And yes, they have their own qualities, but Madueke is very direct. And that's the way Tuchel wants to play. He wants fast wingers that are going to take on the fullback. And then you've got the likes of a Bellingham, Rodgers if he's playing, and even, or really from left back coming in and attacking the box. And I think that's the setup that he's going after. And obviously Kane likes to drop back as well. So a lot relies on the midfield. So again, Rice, Bellingham, Rodgers. And there is a scenario where you've got Bellingham and Rodgers both playing in the same lineup as well. So that shouldn't be ruled out. I agree with you. I think Bellingham is the preferred option, but Rodgers is going to be a very important part of this squad if we go deep into the tournament as well.
I'm happy with Rodgers being a key part of the squad. I do worry he's kind of boxed himself into a corner with the Maduanke option because it just after 80 minutes, if I'm a fullback and I see Maduanke coming on, I'm relieved because I'd look at it and say 3 goals, 2 assists, cause unrest in the locker room at Chelsea, hasn't done great at Arsenal, and you look that we've left Phil Foden and Cole Palmer at home, the player who won PFA Player of the Year and the player who scored 20 plus goals in his debut season for Chelsea, scored in the final of the Euros, scored the penalty against Switzerland in the quarters, made the assist for Ollie Watkins in the semis. Fantastic player. I think we're leaving things on the table here. And I would make the same argument about Trent that he has almost just bottled it with some of the bigger personalities and sort of wants in his mind, I don't think he's actually chosen these players, but compliant yes men rather than mavericks. And the point I was making to you a couple of days ago was that as the tournament and as the teams have expanded from 23 to 26 teams, that's when you have a jack in the box. That's when you have an ace of spades that you can roll the dice with. And to not use that opportunity with Trent, Palmer, and Foden to me is pure folly. And to pick the likes of Henderson, Jed Spence, Madawanke, sorry, but even Eze, who's had quite a poor season as well, that doesn't really start in any position, just is a sort of Phil Neville attacking version, doesn't do enough for me. So I think Tuchel will need to look at himself in the mirror at this selection that he's just gone with players that he thinks he can dictate to a little bit like Fabio Capello and he hasn't actually picked some of the best players who would instill that fear in the opposition is my personal opinion, Ryan.
But isn't that some of the frustrations that we've had of the last 20 years is that he has brought all the names and then the manager has tried to cram in, you know, um, players in positions that they don't necessarily playing for club and it just doesn't work. The point is he's built this team around a very specific system that he sees working for England, and it's built around Harry Kane. Now, Harry Kane didn't have a great tournament last time, and I think a large part of that was that because we had Foden on the left at times, we had Palmer on the right, and that didn't necessarily play to Kane's strengths. Kane's strength is when he's got Elise on one side, fast winger like a Saka, and the same on the other side, like he has at Bayern Munich. And I think in the shape of Gordon and Rashford on the left, all we need is one of them to sort of do well this tournament. And again, Saka does need to make that step, but if he can, and he's certainly got it in him, he's not had the best season, he's been injury hit, but he's sort of come into the tournament at a good time. I don't think there's the worry over his fitness or either he's not fired because he hasn't had a massive season. And if we're firing on the wings like that with Kane and Bellingham in that centre and Rodgers when we want to in between it, that's how England are going to win football matches, and that's our approach. So he's put a lot of eggs in that basket, so to speak, and
So
I think it's going to
he's put
work.
all of his eggs there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if we just look at it from a pure a base perspective, we're in the pub. There's 10 minutes to go. We're 1-0 down against Brazil in that quarter final, and he takes off Saka and brings on Madueke, or he could have brought on Cole Palmer. I know who I feel more. This guy can change the game for us, and it's all well. I concur that we should. Kane is fantastic. Kane's a world class player. We should play to Kane's strengths. But if we are chasing a goal, if we're chasing a maverick, even if we would need someone to score a penalty for us, Madueke bottled the penalty, and Paul Gabriel had to take it in the Champions League final. Palmer has form of stepping up, right? So I just think he's bottled it with this decision. And I think, the one time Madueke wanted to take a penalty was when they're 4-0 up against Everton at home. But when it was in the Champions League
Yeah.
final, it's like, no, Gabriel, you take it for me. So
Yeah,
that's my view.
no, I do think there is a lot of pressure on Madueke, and he will get games early on. And unfortunately, potentially, if he doesn't perform in the first few fixtures when he does get the opportunity, I can see a lot of England fans getting on his back. And whether he can manage that, I don't know. So I do think he needs to hit the ground running. Um, he did okay in the friendly. Obviously missed the open goal, but did well to take on the keeper. But the thing is with Madueke is he's more of if you bring on a Cole Palmer, yes, he could score something out of nothing. He did against Spain, and I wouldn't necessarily say Madueke is that type of player, but we have a lot of other players that can do that. So almost it's like a supporting act for Madueke to be providing that space for Kane. But I keep saying, for our big players that we need to be scoring the big goals. We've got enough in the team that we don't necessarily need another one in Cole Palmer, because if you do bring on Cole Palmer, it just change your setup slightly because he'll be cutting in. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Mm.
I
Yeah,
like the fact that we've got a clear structure and tactics, and whether it works or not, that remains to be seen. But the biggest frustration for England fans, I think, over the years is we haven't really had an identity. But in this team, I potentially see that we will have.
yeah. I mean, the problem for me is if you look at the defence as well, he's made 3 or 4 really questionable choices as well. So picking Jed Spence, who has been abysmal, sorry, but abysmal for a Tottenham team as your left back, picking Dan Burn, picking Jarrell Quansah, when you've left Lewis Hall or Luke Shaw, who both had great seasons for their respective teams. You've left Maguire, who the reason you've taken Tony is for penalty options, and the reason you've taken Henderson is for leadership. You leave Maguire there, which is a very poor decision. And then Trent, there's a lot of rumours why he hasn't taken Trent that I don't want to go into on this podcast, but to not take Trent and take Livramento, who's been injured for most of the season, is unforgivable for me. And Trent offers you so, as you say, playing the almost Man City formation. Trent would have been perfect stepping into midfield, Cancelo-esque in that. So I think it's a really bad squad. Actually, I'm very unhappy with this squad overall. I'd like to know what you think of the
Yeah,
defence.
I think defensively, and you have mentioned players there, but I don't think any of the players you mentioned just then would actually make the starting lineup. And yes, I understand the point that, it's a long tournament. You're going to have fill-ins. But, by and large, in centre backs, you usually stick with your two or three centre backs. I think if there was a Maguire, and I do like Maguire, I don't actually think he would have got that many minutes anyway. So the fact that he's left out, I don't think is as big as a problem as people are making. For me, obviously, Guy and Konsa are probably the two for me, but equally you could interchange Konsa and Stones. The question remains, obviously, if Guy does get injured at some point, do you go with Stones and Konsa? Obviously, both of them usually play on the right side, or is he thinking of bringing the left foot in Dan Burn? I know Maguire's often plays that side as well. But he's made a call based on probably what he's seen in the England camp. You know, probably Maguire's a better fit than Burn, but honestly, I don't think it's that much of a miss because if Maguire was
Ha-
there in place of Burn, I don't think he would probably play either. So then you're just bringing him for his leadership. But yes, players say about his leadership, he's not a winner, though, is he? He's not won many trophies. I mean, what has he won? An FA Cup, so it's not like a massive miss. We're missing a Champions League winner or a Premier League winner. Dan Burns at least won a League Cup as well. So, you know, I don't, so much, to be fair, the point is
d-
the players you mentioned, Trent is a different story because with Trent, you probably have to change your setup a bit. And Reece James is more of a fit for right back than Trent. Yes, you could argue, okay, when Reece James got leggy or he is an injury prone, what you're thinking there. Uh, but Trent hasn't really done it in an England shirt. I think the best I saw him was actually when he was playing midfield, so then it's more of an argument over your midfield choices for me, not so much your defenders. Um, I don't think you necessarily needed Kwanzaa. He's obviously there as a utility. Could you have potentially brought Palmer instead of Kwanzaa and had an extra attack option? Yes, I'd be open to that discussion. But defensively,
and Spence as well, because
eh,
I guess
yeah, Spence on. Yeah, I mean, Aurelie's been fantastic, and Aurelie will be the first choice, won't he? Um, I can actually see Aurelie being a very crucial part of this team. I think when we're on the attack, we'll naturally form to a back four, and Reece James as a right-sided centre back does that very well, which will allow her really to go into the box like he does at City. And I think we do need those runners. And the thinking there, of course, linking to the former point that we've got the wingers that are going to sort of cross the ball in, and then we've got midfield and the likes of a really attacking the box. But the way the tactics is going, Luke Shaw probably doesn't do what Tuchel needs him to do, unfortunately, unless of course you bring in Luke Shaw and he's the defensive one, and then you play a more attacking right back. Maybe Reece James could do that, or arguably a Trent. But there's so many eventualities that could happen that he's obviously made the choice that those are the players.
yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because the FA gave Tuchel a contract extension prior to the World Cup. They did the same with old Woke prior to a couple of tournaments as well. I think the proof should be in the pudding. The FA are far too soft. We're giving out these handouts. And then, okay, we had a good result away in Serbia in the qualifications, but then we've lost at home to Japan. We've drawn at home to Uruguay, okay, but we've drawn at home to Uruguay. We got hammered at home to Senegal and some of the other friendlies. So I don't really think Tuchel has done that much so far for England. I wouldn't say he has got, to my earlier point, a huge pedigree of things he's done that differentiates him from a Di Matteo, for example, or someone else that has, struck lightning here and there. So I have reservations about this team, and the concern that I have for England is when we get to a game in a major knockout tournament that it's a 50-50, there's real jeopardy. We maybe should win, we maybe shouldn't win. We never win. And
Mm,
nothing about Tuchel over the past 2 years, over the past 5 years, demonstrates to me that he is the man that when we are 1-1 against Brazil after 60 minutes, he is going to bring on Cole Palmer, Phil Foden. He won't, and change the game. So that is
mm.
my concern with Tuchel here.
Yeah, I mean, but if you actually broke down a lot of the other squads, I don't think there's many teams, barring France potentially, that has a stacked option on the bench. I mean, let's break down Portugal, who are your favourites. We've already covered midfield, and yes, they've got players there. Um, but who are you playing on your wings? I think Lau's still injured, isn't he? So are you bringing in a Neto as your first choice left winger? You're obviously going for Ronaldo as striker. We've covered that in previous episodes. And his replacements is Ramos. Arguably Kane and Watkins are head and shoulders as a first choice and second choice to Ronaldo and Ramos. And who would be on the right for Portugal currently? Is it
They'll probably put Bernardo
Bernardo?
on the
Yeah,
right,
and who's
Leao
who's
on the
not a
left.
right? Yeah, so you're playing Bernardo, who's not a right winger.
Yeah, I mean it's only Saudi, but Felix has had. I think Felix was essentially Player of the Year in Saudi, so he has done well there.
Fantastic.
You know,
So you've got Ronaldo
so
and João Felix playing in Saudi, or
I
or,
think
or there's it
I think
like,
it's
and then
better
who?
than guys.
So let's say Saka and let's say Rashford is our first. Rashford for me and Gordon is quite interchangeable. But let's say Rashford and Saka versus Neto and Bernardo. 100% you're gonna, and then the substitutes. Okay, Madueke versus I don't know who the right wing Portugal substitute will be, but probably equal to Madueke. Gordon to then, so it's not the case that all these other teams that we speak about, Brazil, that have massive players coming on. I think on left wing for Brazil would be Martinelli. You could say Martinelli, Madueke, this come from Arsenal, frustrating in their own right. So,
Mm.
you could make the same case that you're
Well,
making for a lot of other
and,
teams, apart
and,
from
and, and
France.
you. This is the key point. You apart from France, and it could have been apart from England if we'd taken Foden, Palmer, these sort of players, because I somewhat concur. I do think Portugal have got a good strength and depth, but take that aside, I think look at our team and France's team. We have got so many options, but Tuchel has reneged on taking those options. Eze, not needed. He's just a jack of all trades. Maduanke, not needed as well. Okay, Claire, Balding, Anthony Gordon, and Rashford, fine, but neither of them, like Rashford has never been the first choice for an England team ever before. If he starts, this will be the first time ever that
Yeah.
Rashford has been first choice at a big tournament. And he's been playing for us since Euro 2016. So Rashford isn't the cure of everything. Rashford's had a couple of mediocre seasons at United. He's done okay, to be honest, at Barcelona, but
Mhm.
only okay, and it's in a far easier league. So Rashford is definitely not the cure. He's got on his day is unplayable, but on his day. And then yeah, we've left it at home. I think we could have had these options, Ryan, but Tuchel has bottled it, and we're waiting for Eze and Maduanke to not change the game for us.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree, and it is the wingers that are going to win it or lose it for us. I think, and everyone is saying that the biggest thing for England to win the tournament is Harry Kane stays fit, and there is credence to that argument. Um, but Ollie Watkins is probably in the form of his life, and whether I'd be happy, if Kane did get injured, let's say in the group stage, and we just got Watkins and Tony for the rest of the tournament, would I be totally happy? Probably not, but there's a lot of if buts and maybes that people throw around. I can only really remember, was it '06 when both Rooney and Owen got injured? Yeah, it's never the
Mm.
case that,
Yeah.
four or five players get injured across the tournament, unless you're very unlucky. So I think a lot of the hypotheticals really don't come into play. And to be honest, probably for a lot of squads, it's going to be 16, 17 players playing the bulk of the game, bulk of the minutes, and then the rest not probably getting on the field unless it's like a mediocre cameo towards the end to see out a game.
Well, and this is the point. So going back to my earlier reservations on us winning a big knockout game in the World Cup, can you name me the last time we've beaten a tier one opposition in a knockout game?
Yeah, we haven't, and that's because of the manager. I'm making the point that Tuchel is has more pedigree in tournament football than pretty much all of our previous England managers, barring Capello.
Capello had more, didn't he?
Barring
Yeah,
Capello.
yeah.
But the thing with Capello was he wasn't in tune with the English culture, the English press. Tuchel is. He's been a manager in the Premier League, so that's the difference. Um, and you know, if you break down the actual core of the team, um, Pickford's always done well for England. He's a solid goalkeeper. I don't think anyone's got any concerns there. The two centre backs, Guy and Konsa, both had good seasons. Arguably, Guy, as we mentioned in the last episode, would get into most club teams. I think Konsa, very solid for Villa. They won the Europa League. Very, very happy if he starts. Stones, if he starts instead, as long as he's fit, arguably the best centre back since John Terry in English football, certainly in terms of what trophies he's won. So he's a winner. So that's your sort of backline spine. You've then got Declan and Anderson, both had fantastic seasons. Declan, arguably a top 5 player in the world. Um, and then Bellingham, who hasn't had the best season, but he is probably, alongside Kane, the biggest star in the team. And he does do it in tournament football with Rodgers, who's had an equally good season, his sort of cameo, his step in if needed. And then of course Harry Kane, who is the best striker in the world right now. Many people have him down for top goal scorer of the tournament, and that's what you sort of need in a team. So really, you then questioning just the wingers. And that's why I said at the start, I think the biggest thing for this team is Saka needs a tournament of his life. And we need one of Rashford or Gordon to maybe just make that step up that we've seen in glimpses, but not for a full tournament. And potentially it's Gordon, that can do it because he did have a good Champions League campaign with Newcastle. He scored a lot of goals. He looked quite good in the friendlies. So maybe it is actually time for Gordon ahead of his move to Barcelona to put his name on the world
Mm.
stage.
Yeah, they're all fair points you make. My question back there would be, do you generally think in the space of 8 calendar days, we can go back to back to back against Brazil, Argentina, and Spain? And if
Yeah,
you do,
it'd be a
why do you
massive
think we
ask.
can?
Yeah, it'd be a massive ask, but also it would be a massive ask for Brazil to do the same. I think. If we came up against Argentina, I'll be quite confident going into that game. It'd be difficult, but all of these games, particularly deep in the tournament, will be difficult, and we will have to knock out one of the big sides, at least one, before getting to the final, which probably will be against another. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's no easy feat. No one does it easy, but we've come so close in previous tournaments. The last World Cup, arguably, I mean, it's debatable, but because of the experience of the last few tournaments, I think this team's stronger just because our key players have been there, done that, nearly felt the trophy in their hands and just fallen at the final hurdle. And again, you see it in the likes of Kane, Bellingham. They're all very hungry for this. And, you know, the Arsenal contingent in Rice and Saka, they've just come off the back of, almost the epiphany of winning the double and in the Champions League. They're going to be hungry again. So there's a lot of hunger in the team. There's a bit of youth talent, but all of the players there have been playing for big teams in the Premier League, have had good seasons, by and large injury free, and most of them haven't had a very rigorous season. It's barring Kane and Declan, who have Rice particularly has had a massive season. I do worry there potentially if Rice has it in his legs. So that could be an
Mm.
issue. But again, you can drop Bellingham deeper and then bring in Rodgers, and that's still a very attractive midfield three. Mainu has done well in an England shirt, so if required, he can sit deep. And if we had Anderson and Maino in the middle, that then gives even more flow for the fullbacks to get involved, and maybe the wingers just to be pure wingers, like the Brazilian side, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the big worries for me is a funny worry to have, but is actually the British press. So if Kane has one bad game, or if Kane plays as a kind of quarterback type player against Croatia or against Ghana, doesn't score, the media just love getting on Kane's back, despite his pedigree, despite, 79 goals for England, 61 goals for Bayern Munich this season. It really annoys me because Kane really is our man. Kane will come good when Kane needs to come good. I trust in Harry. He's a brilliant player, great captain. Just seems like a fantastic individual. So I'm all behind Kane, but we just need despite what I've said on this podcast, but we need to cut out the negativity from a British press perspective and just get all in on Kane here.
No, no, it's true. I mean, it's exciting having Kane and Bellingham as sort of, 9 and 10. I whenever we had something like that, maybe Rooney Owen, but there's an
Mm.
injured Owen
This is
potentially.
arguably better, Kane and
Yeah,
Bellingham.
yeah. Um, and then you've got the midfielders behind actually playing their positions, whereas Gerrard and Lampard were always out of
Mm.
position. So we've got that where in previous tournaments we haven't. Um, and really, as a back four, you're only talking about the famous golden generation of a back four that's probably better than this one. Um, and we don't need them to be excellent. We just need them to be solid, then let the stars be the stars. And the issue with bringing in a Foden or a Palmer, they both had very poor seasons, and they are of a type that it forces you to change your tactics because of their profile. And maybe it is what Tuchel's seen, potentially that sort of big player energy in a player that's coming off the bench that he doesn't really need. He has the benefit of seeing it. Of course, he's spoken probably to the senior players prior
Mm.
to selecting his squad. They would have shared it, their thoughts. It was interesting that Jude said in an interview 2 days ago that the last tournament something was wrong in the camp. He didn't say what, but clearly something was amiss. It could have been that energy of the likes of a Palmer or a Foden, and neither have done it this season. You need players that are coming in, and I can't remember a player that had a very poor season or injury hit season and then just absolutely blitzed it in the tournament. Um, that's a quiz. I don't know.
Ronaldo, 2002.
Well, I mean, Ronaldo's Ronaldo. I mean, yeah, yeah, he's the goat or goat -1 if you if that's
Yeah. No, he is. As a striker, he is. Yeah, I think I'm not confident going into this tournament, and it's the selection I'm not confident about, the friendly performances I'm not confident about, the cohesion of this team I'm not confident about, the lack of options I'm not confident about. I don't think you can win a tournament with 13, 14 good players in American, Mexican heat over the summer. I really don't. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that we've selected. I think we've actually got the correct components to win this World Cup, but it's so frustrating. We have left some of them at home, and it's like trying to create a bed, build a bed from IKEA, that we've left some of the key nuts and bolts in the store, and we're just not going to be able to make it. It's going to fall apart, is my view. And I really hope I'm wrong, Ryan. I
yeah.
actually hope for once that you're right, but I can't foresee it.
Well, I said Arsenal were going to win the league last year, and I was correct. So we're on a roll with those predictions. But yeah, look, I mean,
Uh,
we're certainly one of the. I mean, you must concede that going into this tournament, we're one of the favourites. We have to be, and it might actually help the fact that our group isn't an easy group. I think, Croatia is a first game, you have to be at it to get a result there. And if we do, then that's just going to set the tone for the rest of the tournament. Um, and potentially there's a player in the ranks that, we haven't even mentioned that could actually come to light. I mean, you mentioned Eze. It's been a difficult season for him just simply because, first time in Arsenal shirt, he had the move from Palace, so it's always going to be a bit complicated. I mean, he scored a hat trick, albeit against Spurs, not the best defense. Um, but he has his moments, and he is a player that can score outside the box. And again, if you're talking about a player that's happy to shoot from afar or, have a go, that's the type of player you want to be bringing on when you're, as in your example, 1-0 down or tying 1-1 with 5 minutes to go.
yeah, fair, fair. Do you think we'll beat Croatia in the first game?
Um, it's an interesting one. It's always difficult, isn't it? Because, you haven't seen much of the squad. Um, I think the Croatia team is quite an aging team in itself. On balance, I do think we'd be more likely to win than them. Though I wouldn't be surprised if we get a draw, and a draw wouldn't be the end of the world at all.
Mm.
So you take a draw, and hopefully it'll be a win. I mean, we've got the credentials to be able to beat them. And as I say, I think if you do get the result against them in the first game, that
Mm.
just sets the tone for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I'm not sure which way it will be, but I think we'll get 4 points from the Ghana and Croatia game. I'd gone to my head. I'd probably say draw Croatia, narrow win against Ghana, and then we should comfortably
Yeah.
beat Panama. So I think I could see I could honestly see a 0-0 against Croatia, and I feel emboldened by my lack of positivity off the back of that. We narrowly scrape a win against Ghana as we did against, say, Tunisia 8 years ago, and then Panama will be a walk in the park with that. And then let's see where we get to, because as we went through on the previous episode, it could be quite a hard draw with the likes of Norway or Senegal in the 32s, Mexico away from home in the 16s, and then we've gone through the possible quarters and onwards. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
draw might actually be against us for what it's worth as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we could get there, it'd be amazing. It'd be difficult on the way, but we've come so close that sometimes you need to go through those heartbreaks to finally go that one step further. And I've hopefully made the case for some viewers that were on the fence as to why or how we go about it. To summarize, it's the key players that need a big tournament is naturally Harry Kane, which he will if he stays fit. Saka, it's a Star Boys tournament. I think if England do win, we need Saka to be one of the best in the tournament. Um, and then probably I'm on the way winning a penalty shootout. We'll probably have to win a penalty shootout if we were to get all the way. So those are the three key things for me: Kane, Saka, and winning a penalty shootout. And if we do all three, there's every reason to be excited.
And for me, Kane is the best striker in the world, so play through Kane. Bellingham is such a talent. Bellingham is our game changer. Allow Bellingham to play, give him minutes, let him drift, let him have a free roll, and then a bit of luck, to be honest. So Pickford being on top form, but then our defence being fit, Reece James staying fit, Stones staying fit. We need everyone there, strong as we can. And quarters only for me, but let's see. Fingers crossed, Ryan. Let's see how we do.
There we go. Well, thanks for tuning in to all of our listeners and subscribers. There's a few of you out there. If you do like our content, give us a follow. As we said, we're going to be doing these videos throughout the tournament.
Thank you very much. And as Ryan said, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to us if you do. Best of Rivals podcast. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're now on TikTok as well. So keep liking the content, keep watching the content, and we'll keep producing it. So cheers to everyone and see you soon.